Good afternoon, good every other time that you are currently experiencing. And thank you for joining us again for this afternoon. I hope you had good morning sessions. We had, at least from what I was able to participate in, we've had very interesting sessions on the practical applications, in addition to, of course, the interesting keynotes and the background sessions that we had from Professor Bassards, Jesse Mahoney, and everyone else. Now, because we had these parallel sessions, and unfortunately nobody was able to be in 3 places at once, we are going to have a bit of summaries from the participants of these parallel sessions. These are IFSA members, so active youth that we would like to highlight, and who also yesterday participated in the public speaking workshop. So we're bringing together, bringing all together these different opportunities and what can come out of them. Also, before I give the stage to them, I would like to remind that because nobody was able to follow all the sessions, we have recordings of these sessions that we will be posting to the IFSA website afterwards. So if you are interested in other topics, you will be able to also get to see those. But then I would welcome Nikita to tell us about the session that she participated in. That was the restoration, if I remember correctly. So please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Alina. So, hello everyone. My name is Nikita Orang, and I'm currently an IFSA member as the head of UN City Subcommission. So today, the session I'll be briefing about is restoration stewards with our guest speakers as Kandi and Eka. There were discussions on topic as degradation drivers, experiences, motivation, stakeholders, financial needs, and policy implications. And I would like to give a brief summary on what was discussed on the session. So for starting, both Eka and Kandi have been working on respective fields towards restoring the ecosystem. Kanji has been focusing on working with educating the youth regarding conservation and including them in discussions on importance of ecosystem restoration, whereas Eka has been working with her own organization towards restoration of peatlands by planting native species. During dry seasons, peatlands are most vulnerable towards fires, and this leads to destruction of the organic matters. So the core of an ecosystem is largely related to local communities, and they're equally vulnerable to the destruction. And so it is important to work along the communities and develop sustainable livelihood. The involvement of local youth in planning, discussing, and working on site has the highest potential of bringing a change in our actions and preserving our nature for the future generations. Forest policies are nowadays getting better regarding degradation and restoration, and we need people who believe in us, the youth, and realize the potential of youth in bringing a change. Collaborations and inclusivity is the need of the hour for the youth to work on, and since the change needs to be done at the grassroots level. From the speakers, there is this motivation to the youth that, I quote, let's move together and do not hesitate to volunteer towards the nearest conservation related project. It is important to partner with communities to find sustainable solutions, and there is an urgent need to restore the environment so that the future generations can grow within nature. We need to change our mindsets and work on ground for the environment. Quote. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikita. I think that's a very nice introduction to the, well, not an introduction to the book, but something to wake up curiosity in other people to maybe also watch the recording afterwards. Then, for next, I would like to welcome Sarah to talk about halting deforestation. The floor is yours.
Yes, hi, thank you. As Alina said, I attended the session on halting deforestation by Mr. Nelson Grima from IUFRO, who is currently a project manager at GFEP. The presentation handled on the RED Plus initiative. RED Plus enables payments for reduction in forest greenhouse gas emissions. And the project started in 2012. So after 10 years, they released an assessment report to see what the most important results are and what can and should be improved about the initiative. So some key messages of the scientific report were that firstly, ongoing forest degradation alters the global carbon cycle. Then secondly, that RED Plus governance is complex and way more complex than they expected it to be in the beginning. Then also that in spite of criticism, RED Plus is an important tool for climate change mitigation, but its role is limited because it's limited to the forestry sector, and the magnitude of the problem is that big that other sectors also should take action. Then there is social and environmental safeguards that are not fully operational yet. Furthermore, measurements, reporting, and verification of all outcomes still needs to be improved. And then lastly, there's a proliferation of initiatives that of like new similar initiatives that create complexities and burdens to people. So new initiatives are welcome, but they should be designed in a way that they can create synergies. Then very interestingly from that scientific report, which is also very important, they then use that as a basis of stakeholder consultation in Asia and Latin America. And some main outcomes of that were on the social level, that participation with local stakeholders still has to be improved, also taking into consideration traditional knowledge and gender balance, and that projects should bring along capacity building for local people. Then on an economic level, transparency needs to be enhanced because people want to know more about the flow of the funding and where does the money go, and is that actually being translated into improvement on the local level. Funding should also be more equally distributed, and the opportunity and implementation costs are not always covered by the funding, so which is of course a big problem. On the environmental level, species selection is critical and has to be done very carefully. Then governance-wise, corruption is a very big problem, and of course RED Plus cannot solve corruption on its own, but it can be part of the solution. And then technically, the reporting requires a lot of expertise, and that's often not found in on the local level. So there could be given workshops on how to report to improve that. Then, we ended with a few questions, for example, on information sharing, the criticism on RED Plus, the balancing of having to follow policies, but then also creating new ones, and how youth is involved in the stakeholder discussion. So yeah, it was very interesting. Thanks to Nelson Grima, and I encourage you all to watch the recording if you were not able to attend.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think that also reflects what I heard, and I think like the very important thing you mentioned was that the governance there is very complex and much more complex than expected, but still we managed to get like a very good idea of what is actually happening there during this session, and also through your summary. So thank you. And then last, but for sure not least, I would like to welcome Faiha to summarize the session of sustainable forest management for us. The floor is yours.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. So I was gained the chance to review regarding the sustainable forest management session, which was brought by Mr. Bernhard Wolfstromer from the Forest Bureau. So basically, we were told about the dynamics of SFM components. SFM is not only like an individual state, but also how we see it as a big picturization of in the form of structure, since it stands with the ecological, economical, and also social pillars. And so we kind of approach it in a way of what we call a nexus approach, where how the element works together and also interact with each other. So Mr. Bernard also explained to us regarding there are a lot of different way of implementation for the SFM itself, especially he told us about the implementation in Europe, where there are around like 46 countries and EU are among the signatures, and the significant outcomes are specifically in the form of criteria and indicators, which will be implemented in the reports later on. So if we call this SFM, whether or not it's actually a successful program, we can see the progress up until now. For example, like how European forest area has largely increased by this, and how carbon stock keeps on growing with sustainable harvesting rates, and how protected forest area increased in the last 30 years. I think these are several significant examples that could give us how this sustainable forest management is actually successful in terms of the procedures. But of course, we also face several challenges, especially in the terms of pressure by the climate change and also the natural disasters, which also impact our demands in the market. I think that is one of the main challenges. And so these indicators that I have mentioned before, I think this could be implemented whether it's in the political initiatives or also market-based initiatives in order to tackle these challenges. For example, in the market-based initiative, we use the certification method, for example, from FSC, where by this certification progress, we could actually increase the demand within the forest market itself. So in the end of the day, if we hear the conclusion in this session, especially, there are no indicators of declining sustainability in forests in Europe, which also indicates how successful sustainable forest management is. But yet, the climate change effects and changing societal demands increase the pressure on the forest management itself. And so the integration of forest use, biodiversity, and climate change mitigation will be our main key to tackle these kind of challenges in the future. And also a balancing of different interests is needed as a prerequisite for the future sustainable forest management. I think that is all that I can summarize for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Faya. Yeah, I do believe also that sustainable forest management is, of course, a key component on how we can guarantee that we will have a forest as a resource to use and as a building material, as well as something that we can then use to ensure that we also have healthy natural ecosystems for climate change adaptation and mitigation, as well as biodiversity loss and everything. So thank you for your summary on that. And with that, we have concluded the summaries of all the 3 sessions that we had before lunch. And as we were quite quick with that, I will invite you to an additional 5-minute break. So grab a coffee and prepare for the finance for the next session, that is with a long title of Forest Finance Contribution into Sustainable Forest Management, Deforestation and Restoration, as we will get another point of view into these 3 topics that we have been talking about now during these summaries, as well as, of course, the sessions earlier, to see how we maybe also think that money runs the world, but what good can it do with these practical policy practices. So see you in